This time, I'm going to be introducing the top class International League players in a bit of an interview format, so let's get into it. First, we have Rion from the US, and he said he got into Puyo through his mother back in 2009, and I actually met his mother at a Puyo event, so that's really cool. She actually participated in the event too. Now, as for his best moment in Puyo, he said he wasn't really sure. I'm sure he's had a lot of good moments, but if I had to pick one for him, I'd pick the Frosty Fostings 2023, partially because I was also there and I lost to him, so he was able to beat me in both the Swap and the Puyo Puyo tournaments, and I really thought going in that if I just played solid, just played well, I would be able to beat him, but I felt like I played pretty well and I just couldn't beat him, so that's kind of where I felt like, wow, this guy's the real deal. He's really good. He actually has a lot of potential and is maybe even better than me. So now he says his best strength he thinks is the wackiness of his playstyle, and he can go for the wildest, most out of the ordinary chains one could think of, and just make it work in a way that you couldn't even imagine. So either that or his all clears. So he's pretty popular for going for really strange all clears and then just somehow winning the round anyway when he gets them. Even though it seems like it shouldn't work or it seems like it's not a good strategy, he'll find a way to make it work. So as for why he thinks people should support him and root for him, he said he's one of the few players who knows how to approach the game, but goes out of his way to do everything but that. So you'll see, like, occasionally he'll play a normal style, like good theoretical Puyo that makes sense and all of that. And then a lot of times he'll just do something that, like, doesn't really make sense. It doesn't look like it'll work, and it doesn't seem that good, but he just wins anyway. Like, he'll go for like 5 chain all clears or 6 chain all clears, but it will win the round, or he'll build something that doesn't look efficient and it looks like it's wasting Puyo, but he'll find a way to win anyway. So that's something that I think is really amazing, is that I would say a lot of times he doesn't play like a theoretical player. He just kind of does stuff, and it looks like it's not that good sometimes, but he makes it work, and that's really all that matters is, like, can you find a way to win? You don't have to necessarily be a perfect theoretical player. Like, if you can kind of just play however you want and still win, sometimes that's even cooler. And next we have Hiku from France, and he said he got into Puyo Puyo because he always liked Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, but he didn't know that people play that game competitively. But eventually in 2014 he found Ken Bogard's commentary videos of S-Rank League. So, and then after he found those competitive Puyo videos, he decided to also play it competitively. Now as for his best Puyo moment, he said it wasn't even as a competitive player, but what he thought was his best moment was organizing the 24 kickoff, which was a really big tournament hosted by the Western scene, but some big name Japanese players also joined, and it was a really big event online. And that tournament made the partnership between the Ascension, like, international community and SEGA possible. So now we have this event where this league, international league, not the top class international league, but a SEGA league, where the winner is going, the top 2 international players are going to get to go to Japan, and that was all possible because of this partnership between Ascension and SEGA that Hiku essentially put in the work to make happen. So that's something that I think we all have to respect that, and I think that's amazing. And he said, as a player, though, he's never won anything comparable to like this top-class international league. So if he wins this one, it'll become his new best Puyo moment. Now, what he says is his best strength is his chaining efficiency. And he said he also thinks he's good at all clear rounds and digging. And that's interesting because I feel like most players say they aren't good at all clear rounds. But so to see someone who says they're actually good at all clear rounds is kind of interesting. And that'll be cool to see if he can make it work out in his favor in those all clear rounds. He also said he apparently plays in a weird way, so it seems like he's surprising sometimes. And by that, I think it's just because most players don't do the tell first builds. Most people do like transition first builds with the transition on the left. But Hiku is one of those players who does tell first builds usually and builds the tell on the left and the transition on the right. Now, as for why you should root for Hiku, he just says hopefully his playstyle can bring hype to his matches. And that's cool. I think like I was saying, you don't see that many tell first builds or players who build like that, and so it'll be something cool to see, like something different, something kind of fresh. But I'd also say, like, he's someone you would want to root for just because of how much he's done for the Western scene as a whole. So if you don't know the Ascension community, it's a competitive Puyo server on Discord, and it has most of the like strongest players outside of Japan actively participating in it. So you can play matches, ask for advice, talk to people, and it's just a really friendly community to hang out in, and everyone supports everyone. And I would say pretty much this is all thanks to Hiku that there's this really big international community. There's a lot of these big events, a lot of these big tournaments. This partnership with SEGA, like I said. This is kind of all thanks to Hiku, so just because of how much he's done for the community, it really makes you want to see him do well in these tournaments as well. Next up, we have Void from Brazil, and he said he got into Puyo more than 15 years ago when his dad bought him Sonic Mega Collection Plus on the PS2. And he found the Mean Bean Machine game on that and got into that. And then eventually he learned that Mean Bean Machine was a clone of Puyo Puyo. And then he started getting into the actual game, the Puyo games. And in 2017, he really got into the online community and then played on Puyo Versus 2 and then just grew as a player after that. And he said for what he thought was his best Puyo moment, he said he's participated in so many events and he's had so many like crazy runbacks, it's hard for him to pick a single best moment. But the one that he said he thought was his best was there was this live tournament in France that he went to, and earlier this year, and he said he got to do so many different things for the first time. It was his first time going to a different country, a different continent. It was his first time meeting Puyo players in real life and hanging out with them. And it was his first time being able to play the game in person and participate in an in-person event. And he even got a medal because he won the event. So for him, that is his current highlight. And as for his strengths, he said he thinks he's very persistent, even though he doubts himself a lot. But because he doubts himself, it gives him the introspection to be able to do better the next time. And now the competition is stronger than ever, and he doesn't have as much faith in his ability to get first place as consistently anymore, but he has the persistence to keep going forwards. And as for why people should support him, he said he thinks people should root for him if they like him the most out of everyone. And that makes sense to me. But he said for a long time, he's seen himself as like the wall that people have to work really hard to overcome if they want to win events. And in some ways, as a kind of villain to root against, because he's the guy who always wins. So, like, people eventually want to see someone else win, but he just always stops everyone from winning. And I feel like that when I play against him. I'm like working really hard to get better, and I still can't beat him. But he said, now that Pandora's box is open, and there are so many players that are really, really strong, like at his level or stronger, he might be a kind of an underdog now that you want to cheer for. And if I had to add to that, I'd say, to me, he's always seemed like in the Western scene, he's been almost unbeatable for everyone except the best, like the best of the best in the Western scene. So he's just been consistently really strong, and even though he said the competition's stronger nowadays, I feel like he's also getting stronger nowadays. So he might be getting to that level where he might be reaching the next level, because I feel like in the past he's been maybe a little bit weaker than the absolute best players in the Western scene. But now it really does feel like he's almost at their level, or maybe just the same level as the top players. Maybe he is the top, like, he can compete for the title now. He can be the best now. So this might be his time to show that, if he's really gotten better, really gotten there, and if he can make it. Something else that is really cool about Void is that he plays with his own style that other people don't play like that, where he'll build all different kinds of transitions. He'll do left side transitions, right side transitions, transition first. He'll do tell first. He'll do big attacks in the early game. He'll do really big attacks in the mid game, but still be able to make a main chain. He'll do big main chain focused builds. He'll kind of just do a lot of different things and it's a lot less fixed and a lot less standard, like how a lot of people just play the same type of build every game, the same type of strategy every game. He really likes to mix it up and do a lot of different things that put a lot of pressure on the opponent to try and keep up with. After that, we have Acliv from Taiwan. So as for how he got into the game, he said he doesn't remember exactly when he started playing, but he began with Puyo Puyon, and back then he would just play the story mode, but he would also play matches against his brother, but they didn't really know what they were doing. They were just kind of stacking randomly and stuff. And then in 5th or 6th grade, then he got back into the game and he started playing Fever 2, and he would play against the computer. But then there were some Taiwanese players sharing tips online about 20 years ago. So he learned from those tips and occasionally met up with those players offline. And then he played Fever for about 3 years. And then the PC version of Puyo Puyo Fever 1 was released, so he'd play online matches with overseas players, and he would even play against some of the best players in Japan, like Kamistry and Tom. But then when he got into high school, he kind of stopped playing. But then with Puyo Puyo Tetris, he got back into it and started playing Tsu pretty seriously. So as for his best moment, he says he's not really sure, and he has a lot of good moments, but in the past he's organized a lot of tournaments, and that really brought the Taiwanese community together and helped it grow, and so he's really happy about that. And then he also has his own good tournaments as well, but he said generally speaking, he feels that both personal growth and community growth are forms of progress, and getting more people into the game is always a good thing. But recently he's been kind of trying to balance improving his own skills versus helping others, and he doesn't really know how to do that yet. But I think it's interesting that a lot of these players do a lot for like their communities and sometimes consider that as good or even better as their own competitive results. Now, as for what he thinks he's really good at, he said it's probably deciding whether or not to extend his main chain. So you don't always need to extend it as much as you possibly can. If you know you have enough, then you should just fire it. Like, you should fire it as soon as you have enough, just to make sure you don't get droughted on a color or you don't let the opponent set up a second chain. But that's a really tough decision to make, so that's why it's hard to be strong in that aspect. So if he thinks he's good at that, that can be something that can really separate him from the other players maybe. And then he also said he thinks his second chaining is pretty good too. And as for why people should root for him, well, he just said he hopes he can play some good matches. But if I were to add to that, I would say he's been like one of the best or the best in the Western scene for so long, and his play just looks really solid, and I feel like he's gotten even better. Like, recently, some of the plays he's been making just look so strong. It's like, wow, this guy is really good now. Like, I don't know how you beat him. And I would say his play style is a lot more of the type of play that you would recommend other people copy. You're like, this is how you play well. Like, this is what you do to be a good player. So his play is more on the, like, theoretically good. He builds really solid chains. He has solid mid game. He just does everything really well. So if you want to see someone who just plays good, like does everything just well, Acliv is probably one of the players you want to watch. Yeah. Next we have Yoshi from Australia, and he said he got into Puyo because his father bought him an Xbox when he was just 3 years old, and then it came with Puyo Pop Fever, and ever since then his love for Puyo has just grown with time. Now for his best Puyo moments, he said there's been so many amazing moments, but just to choose something recently, he was able to complete the 10 million point challenge in less than 10 minutes. And not just that, it was 9:17, which is a crazy fast time. So to put that into perspective, if you build the smallest 15 chain you can, it's about 100,000 points. So if you were able to build a 15 chain in a minute, that's very fast and very big. But that you would have to do that 10 times in a row at that speed to make 10 minutes in the 10 million point challenge. But so to get 9:17, you have to do even more than that. You have to either build bigger than the small 15 chains, or you have to do it faster than a minute, or both. So being able to do that is just so crazy, and there just aren't really that many people who can do that, especially in the Western scene. But also, as someone who's watched Yoshi play a lot, I would say there's also been like a lot of big tournaments, a lot of big comebacks in big league matches and things like that, that I also think are some real highlights of Yoshi's Puyo play. Now, as for what he thinks his best strength is, he said he thinks it's his mental stability. So he does get excited sometimes, he gets nervous sometimes, just like everyone else, but he's always able to stay positive and composed even in the high pressure situations, and that really helps him perform well. So in my eyes, I feel like he's one of the players who handles the pressure the best. So he doesn't let it stress him out. He doesn't let it like affect his play too much. He just almost always can keep it together, play well, and not get down, like not get frustrated or upset, where even if he's losing by a huge amount, he can keep it together and then make really big comebacks. So there's been times where he's been down like 10 points or more in a first to 20 or first to 30, and he just keeps it together, stays positive, and then brings it back. Like there have been matches that go to the final point, and then he wins it on the final point. So he really seems like one of the most mentally stable players out there. And as for why you should support him, he says, as someone who thrives off of pure willpower through positivity and determination, he'd love for others to be able to feel that they can reach the same heights as he can by pursuing a similar mindset. So that means he's going to need all the support that he can get so that he can place high and show the world what this mindset is capable of. So everyone raise your hands and give him your energy. But if I had to add to that, I would say I feel like he's just a very kind person. Like he's always willing to help anyone. So he has a stream on Twitch that he often streams on. So if you haven't seen that, I recommend checking that out. But he's very helpful. Like if you want advice or anything, someone to talk to, you can just ask him questions and he'll do his best to answer or to help anyone out who needs help. And he's also learning Japanese, so even if you speak Japanese, you can try and communicate in Japanese with him and he'll probably try and talk with you in Japanese or understand what you're saying. And he is also just good at, he's been like maybe the best player, like English speaking player for a very long time. And just no one's really been able to beat him. And he makes some really big comebacks like I was talking about where he can be down crazy amounts and then just like win a bunch and then just win the set anyway. So he's just a very mentally strong player and also a very friendly player, like I said, who will help anyone out. And the last player we have is Rick from Taiwan. And as for how he got into Puyo, he said one day his father was playing Puyo, and then Rick was watching, and then his father gave him the controller, so then Rick put the piece down, and then it made an 8-chain. So then he felt like he made the 8-chain because he was holding the controller at that time. So then he thought that was really cool, and then he wanted to become stronger and be able to do that himself. So he practiced every day. And I heard he also, so then he would play games with his father and just for fun, but eventually his father started to find out that he couldn't keep up with Rick anymore. Rick was just too good. Now, as for Rick's Puyo highlight, he said in the B Pro Cup in 2022, he used to play really badly online, but in that tournament, he was able to play really well and he got third place, so he was really happy about that. And he was really young, apparently only 14 years, 13, 14, around there at the time. So I think he's the youngest player of the group. So as for what he thinks he's good at in the game, he said making a second chain because he can use his imagination and consistently add new links to the chain. And that's always a really difficult thing to do because it's a lot less fixed than your first chain. So when you're just building one big main chain, you can kind of just always build the same shapes and everything like that. But when you make your second chain, you have to use everything that's left over, so it's not always in the same spots, it's not always the same shape, and you have to kind of be creative and just use what's on the field. So he says he can do that really well and use his imagination to make clever chains. Now, as for why you should support him, he says, well, you don't have to support him, but he thinks that having a good mood and behavior is the most important thing, and whether or not he plays well is secondary. So, if you can have a good mindset and a good behavior, that makes you a good player, and that makes you someone that should be supported, that we should want to support. Now, to add to that, like I was saying, he is the youngest player in the group, but from what I've seen from his past videos, some videos of his play in the past compared to now, it just feels like he's shot up so quickly. He's become strong so fast, or he's improved so fast that he's definitely someone you have to watch out for. And at this point, he might even be the strongest player in the whole group. So he might be the favorite to win the whole thing, this whole top class international league. So that's kind of like a crazy story because he's the youngest player in the group. So now, so I guess I would say that he seems to be just extremely talented, and it's kind of exciting to see where he'll go and how far he can go. Can he compete with the best in the Western scene? Can he do even better than that? Can he compete with the best in Japan even, maybe? We'll just have to see. So to kind of summarize everything, we have Rion, who does a lot of non-theoretical, crazy plays that just somehow work out and win anyway. And I would consider him to be an underdog that can compete with anyone. Like even top Japanese pros, he can put the pressure on them, he can sometimes even beat them. Now, Hiku is the Ascension community leader and has done so much to build up the game outside of Japan, and I think that's something that we all have to respect him for. Void is a player I would say is on the edge of greatness, where he's always been one of the best, but now he might even be the best. He can probably compete with all the best, and now is his chance to prove it. Acliv is one of the most solid players, one of the strongest players, like one of the best players out there, and he just makes very sound plays, and he's one of the players that you might want to learn from, you might want to copy if you're trying to get better. Yoshi is just very friendly, always has a positive mindset, is just very mentally stable and mentally strong, and of course is also just one of the best players outside Japan too. And Rick, I would consider him to be a young star, maybe the most talented player of the whole group, one of the best players at this point outside of Japan, and maybe even the favorite to win the whole thing.